Have you ever wondered how one of the world's most celebrated actresses once nearly abandoned her ambition to perform right before becoming a legend? Meryl Streep's journey brims with surprising twists like that, moments that shaped a future icon before she took center stage. From a devastating personal loss that almost derailed her entire path, to random encounters that transformed her artistry, her life story is etched with both heartbreak and hope. Let's explore 10 little-known facts about a woman often hailed as the greatest actress of all time. The heartbreak that almost ended her career. Few fans know that early in her life, Meryl Streep faced an unimaginable emotional crisis. The slow, agonizing loss of her fiancé, the brilliant actor John Cazale. Cazale, best known for his roles in The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon, was diagnosed with terminal cancer while he and Meryl were planning their future together. She was in her late 20s, and Cazale's passing in 1978 shattered her spirit to the point where she momentarily questioned if she could ever continue acting. What saved her was her own resilience and a deep-seated passion for performance that Cazale had always nurtured. They shared a small, cluttered apartment in New York City where they would run lines together, finding laughter amidst despair. Even now, decades later, she remembers him not with bitterness, but with gratitude for pushing her to keep going. Friends say she often speaks of him with tears in her eyes, tears that convey both love and a profound sense of loss. That emotional reservoir helped shape her approach to future roles. Whenever you see a deep vulnerability in her performances, whether as the grieving mother in Kramer vs. Kramer or the conflicted Sophie in Sophie's Choice, you might be catching a glimpse of that very real, personal heartache. Her first love was opera, not acting. While many know of her extraordinary ability to slip into accents and adopt different voices, it's a lesser-known fact that Streep seriously considered becoming an opera singer before she dove headfirst into theater. As a teenager, she studied operatic singing under esteemed vocal coaches, impressing them with her remarkable range. She performed at recitals in a pristine soprano voice that made audiences lean forward in disbelief. But ironically, the discipline and rigidity of the opera world clashed with her budding sense of creative freedom. Streep later admitted that while she loved the musicality, she felt fenced in by the tight structure of opera. She craved the spontaneity of drama, where she could shapeshift into entirely different people, delve into complicated psychologies, and wear new emotional armor in each role. That pivot from singing to acting would become a cornerstone of her career. Her vocal training later helped her master accents from the crisp British of Margaret Thatcher to the Polish cadence of Zofia Sophie Zawistowski. She was almost deterred by a cruel insult at an early audition. One of the more startling anecdotes from Meryl's early career involves the famed Italian producer Dino De Laurentiis. She auditioned for a role in the 1976 remake of King Kong, and as the story goes, De Laurentiis turned to his son and disparagingly whispered in Italian, "Why did you bring me this ugly thing?" Unaware that Streep understood the language, he was shocked when she replied in fluent Italian, telling him she was sorry he found her too ugly for his film. Though she did not get the role, this episode was a powerful turning point. She walked out of that audition feeling disheartened but strangely liberated, determined to keep her dignity intact in an industry where a woman's appearance could overshadow her talent. She would later describe the moment as a wake-up call, a reminder that resilience and self-worth were essential armor in show business. It was one of the many slaps, she once said, but it's one of the slaps that wakes you up. She's a champion of improvisation, even in the most high-stakes scenes. While Meryl Streep is known for her meticulous approach, researching dialects, reading source materials, even studying a character's profession, she also trusts her instincts to improvise when necessary. In Kramer vs. Kramer, there's a pivotal scene where Joanna Streep's character has an emotionally fraught conversation with her husband, Ted, played by Dustin Hoffman. Streep famously requested to rewrite some of her lines to reflect a more authentic female perspective. At first, this was seen as brash. She was a relatively new actress going toe-to-toe with established men in Hollywood, but the depth and nuance she brought through that improvisation won her not just respect, but an Academy Award. Directors who have worked with her say she rarely relies on the exact same approach twice. She might meticulously plan one moment, then fling herself into the unknown in the next, always in service of capturing raw humanity on screen. Her early stage roles, were filled with experimentation and the occasional on-stage mishap. Before Hollywood came calling, Streep cut her teeth on stage at Yale School of Drama and in New York City theaters. She devoured roles in Shakespearean plays, ancient Greek tragedies, and avant-garde productions, often in experimental costumes or sets. Friends from that era recall that Streep was never afraid to make bold, sometimes bizarre, acting choices. During one memorable performance of a Shakespeare play, she committed so fully to a dramatic fainting spell that she accidentally struck her head against a wooden platform. Though she was momentarily dazed, she carried on, finishing the scene and wowing the audience. That blend of bravery and willingness to risk physical or emotional discomfort became part of her signature style. Point 6. She relies on collaboration over competition. Despite her towering reputation, Meryl Streep is often described by co-stars and directors as someone who prizes collaboration more than rivalry. In an industry famously brimming with egos, that's a rare distinction. Did you know she's known to host small dinners for her co-actors so they can break down barriers before stepping on set? One such example comes from the set of The Devil Wears Prada. While she portrayed the formidable Miranda Priestly on camera, off camera she reportedly invited the younger actors, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, and others, to casual gatherings. She wanted everyone to share stories, jokes, and observations, building trust and unity that would translate into more organic on-screen chemistry. If you watch the film closely, the interplay between the characters has an almost electric authenticity, largely attributed to how she orchestrated goodwill behind the scenes. She's been involved in quiet acts of philanthropy, including scholarships for young women. She doesn't flaunt it, but Meryl Streep has quietly poured substantial support into various philanthropic causes. Together with her husband, sculptor Don Gummer, she established scholarships and endowments at schools such as the University of Massachusetts and Vassar College, aimed predominantly at helping female students pursuing the arts. These gestures are deeply personal. Streep has spoken about how scholarships and supportive mentors allowed her to study at Vassar Dartmouth as a visiting student and the Yale School of Drama without the crushing burden of financial stress. She wants to pay it forward. While her activism on larger platforms like women's rights and environmental causes is more publicly noted, these personal contributions reveal a more intimate side, a quiet desire to invest in young women who might not otherwise get their shot. Point 8. She was once haunted by the fear of being found out. It's astonishing to learn that Meryl Streep, often described as the best actress of her generation, has wrestled with imposter syndrome. She's admitted in interviews that after a particularly successful run of performances, she sometimes panicked, thinking the next role would be the one that finally exposed her as a fraud. This sense of vulnerability is something she's talked about only sporadically, but it resonates with many creative people. Perhaps it's part of what keeps her performances so raw and immediate, She never slips into complacency. She approaches each character as though it could be her last chance to truly prove herself. That sense of urgency has become one of her trademarks, pulling viewers into her every sigh, glance, and tear on screen. She's not immune to controversy. Though respected across the globe, Streep has faced her share of criticism and controversy, some more publicized than others. One issue that resurfaces from time to time is her decision to stand and applaud Roman Polanski when he won an Academy Award, fueling debate about whether artists should separate a creator's work from their personal actions. Additionally, her performance in The Iron Lady drew praise for its accuracy, but also provoked backlash from those who felt the portrayal of Margaret Thatcher's dementia was insensitive. Streep has also raised eyebrows with certain political remarks, from strongly criticizing specific administrations to championing hot-button social issues. While she's lauded by many for using her platform, critics argue that she sometimes speaks from a place of privilege, overlooking nuances of policy or broader contexts. Whatever stance one takes, these controversies underline a reality. Even revered cultural icons cannot avoid the crosshairs of public debate. Streep herself appears keenly aware of this, often offering thoughtful responses that acknowledge dissent. "I'd rather be criticized for speaking than be haunted by staying silent," she once commented during a heated awards season Q&A. 10. Her legacy extends far beyond the screen. Meryl Streep's influence on Hollywood is obvious. Record-breaking Oscar nominations, iconic roles spanning genres, and a standard of excellence that younger actors chase. But her legacy penetrates deeper. She's helped shift how female protagonists are conceived, pushing for complex roles that reflect the kaleidoscope of women's experiences. Mothers torn between career and family, leaders wrestling with power, women grappling with moral quandaries, or simply individuals trying to find their voice. Beyond film sets, she's used her recognition to spark conversations about equal pay, body image, and ageism in an industry that tends to sideline older women. Directors, screenwriters, and producers have credited her with inspiring them to create richer roles that better represent real human stories. Meryl Streep's tale is one of reinvention and resilience, shaped by personal grief, buoyed by unwavering self-belief, and anchored by a deep respect for craft. Whether it's a moment of improvisation that turns a scene from good to unforgettable, or the quiet heartbreak that steels her resolve, each lesser-known chapter in her story reveals the woman behind the legend. She's a testament to how vulnerability can be the bedrock of greatness, reminding us that some of the most poignant art comes from the raw, unguarded corners of the heart. In looking at her life, we see more than a star. We see someone who never allowed an industry's narrow expectations to define her. We see a person who turned heartbreak into motivation, who refused to be reduced by a single cruel comment in an audition, and who continues to question herself not out of insecurity, but out of a desire to never become stale. Meryl Streep's journey resonates because it's so recognizably human, even as her talent appears almost superhuman. And maybe that's the greatest lesson she offers us, that perseverance, empathy, and artistic integrity can open doors to worlds we never thought possible. It's a story about embracing the fragile and the fierce within ourselves, and letting both shine on stage and off.